I'd like to welcome everybody to the July 17, 2025 Central Virginia Planning District Commission. If you have your phone with you, if you don't mind putting it on silence or whatnot, we'll get started. Um, Tonight we have three people with requests for electronic participation. We got Campbell County's Representative Tom Law, two of our speakers, Ryan Price from Richmond and Amanda Ponce from Charlottesville. Can I get a motion to allow these participants to participate electronically?
So moved. Second.
Vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. Okay, welcome. Welcome everybody to our July 17th meeting. So to get started, we're going to have our first special guest, Ryan Price, Virginia Association of Realtors. A little bio about Ryan. For nearly 2 decades, Ryan has honed his knowledge of Virginia's economy and housing market in a variety of roles in the public, private, and nonprofit sectors. Ryan is Chief Economist of Virginia Realtors, Virginia's largest trade association, leading a team of researchers that focuses on housing market trends in Virginia and the economic and demographic factors that move the market. Ryan received a master's degree in urban and regional planning from Virginia Tech and a bachelor's degree in finance from James Madison University. Ryan, welcome to our meeting, and the floor is yours.
Thank you guys so much for having me. Good evening, commissioners. I'm Ryan Price with the Realtors Association. And tonight I just wanted to give you guys a kind of a briefing on what we talked about at the Housing Summit. I gave a longer version of this presentation at the Housing Summit and wanted to distill it down in some key takeaways for you all this evening. And so I'm going to go through several slides about the economy there locally. We're gonna, talk about the region is growing. Where it's putting pressure on the housing market. So we're gonna take a look at that. There's also a growing mismatch between the wage levels that we're seeing out there in the economy, the types of jobs that are being added, and then the housing that is available in your market, both rental as well as for sale. And this is important because housing is really a cornerstone of economic development. Um, Firms that are looking to relocate to the region, they're evaluating whether or not there are suitable housing options for their employees. So that's something that we're going to take a closer look at to see what's available. We're also going to talk through some key data points on the for sale market and some recent updates that we've seen through the spring. And then, also take a look at some supply shortage numbers that our team has calculated. So the kind of high level looking at the economy there, you guys are the third largest economy of the smaller metros in the state of Virginia. So you have a GDP of about almost $11 billion. Um, you know, right behind, Roanoke being the largest of the smaller regions, Charlottesville not far behind. You guys are well ahead of sort of the college towns, Blacksburg, Harrisonburg, Winchester, and then Stanton's the smallest, but third largest economy and second largest labor force. You have about 127,000 folks in your labor force. This is as of April of 2025. So a sizable labor force. And then the third highest amount of jobs. So about 105,000, give or take, jobs. Again, this is the metro footprint, so the entire metro region of Lynchburg. And taking a look at those jobs, what types of jobs are we talking about? So your economy is mostly a service-based economy. You can see healthcare, health services, about 20%. So about a fifth of all those 105,000 jobs, about 20,000 or so of those jobs are in healthcare and education. Manufacturing is another big sector there with about 13%. We got, retail trade and businesses that cater to leisure and recreation, restaurants, hotels, things like that. Professional and technical services is more of kind of your office workers. And then we also have, another 10% are in local government. So about 75%, of all of your jobs, all your 105,000 jobs are in these few sectors. So it's only a handful of sectors that really dominate the landscape. I should mention that if you look at that other 25%, way down there at the bottom is federal government. So you guys only have less than 1 percentage point of federal workers in your region. So the ongoing uncertainty up in DC and the Beltway, unlikely to directly impact your job market. Very few federal jobs are down there in Lynchburg. That being said, the state coffers in Richmond certainly rely on a lot of taxes from those jobs, income taxes, things like that, from Northern Virginia, from Hampton Roads, that indirectly could influence the Lynchburg region and all regions really in Virginia. But wanted to just bring that to your attention. Just 1% of your workforce, very little exposure down there in Lynchburg to the federal reductions. So what has been changing? When you look at by change, we're talking about from 2019 to 2024, that 5-year window. What has been the net change in the type of jobs in your region? Most of the growth, as you can see here, and this is in thousands, so leisure and hospitality, you're looking at 400 additional net positive jobs. So 400 additional jobs in that sector. Other services, which is a kind of a catch-all category, um, really has everything from, dry cleaning to funeral homes, any type of service that can't really fit into these boxes goes into other services. Healthcare, certainly another big one, not just in your region, but all over the state. Net change of about 300 jobs. And then construction is another big one that we've been seeing some growth in, not only in your region, but pretty much all over Virginia. So we're going to look at a couple of these growing sectors and sort of connect the dots between, what these sectors, the wage levels of these sectors, and then the housing prices that would likely be attainable using these wage levels. So the first example we have here is the healthcare worker, and you can see it's about a $68,000 wage for healthcare workers in the Lynchburg metro region. Going to be a wide range, depending on the skill certification, things like that. But, back of the napkin math here, we're talking purchasing power of about $228,000 in the for sale market for this wage. And if they were looking for a rental unit, the max that they could spend that would be considered attainable or affordable is $1,700. So for starters, we know it's not that simple. We know that not every single household has only one wage. There's many households that have multiple jobs, but there are also many households that have a single worker in their family. So this is sort of a simplified version of this, but the for sale market, there's not a lot of inventory out there at two in the 200s at all in your region. There's some of the smaller units potentially, but you talk to any of our realtor members out there, that 228 price point, those are hard to find, and when they are found, they're usually in pretty high demand. Now the 1,700 a month on rent, that is definitely more achievable. There's certainly a lot of units that would be available, various sizes at that price point. Take another example here, residential construction worker, a lot of permitting activity as we'll see soon. So a lot more residential construction happening. About $53,000 is the average annual wage for this type of job. Again, wide range depending on your skill or trade. About 175,000, which is virtually non-existent in most of the region. 1,300 a month for rent. You could find it, but again, we're getting a little tighter on that. And so you start to see there's mismatch, and you could play out these scenarios for any number of these job sectors and sort of see a similar trend, some worse off than others, but certainly not an abundance of housing availability for the workers. Now, let's take a look at the housing market. And again, these are pretty recent data. We are going to have our June data soon. But what we have now is before we talk about the actual market, though, we got to talk about mortgage rates because right now we're in a very rate sensitive market. The interest rates haven't really fluctuated changed that much in the past 2.5 years. You're looking at upper 6% for a 30-year fixed. So really not that much change. And what this is doing is it's kind of locking in the inventory. Folks that already own their home who have the 2, 3, 3.5%, 2.5, whatever it be, they're not just voluntarily listing their home in mass because it's really a hard sell because you lose your 3%, you go out on the market, you get almost 7%. So this is keeping the inventory constrained. Another thing that's keeping the inventory constrained out there is underproduction of housing. Virginia, which is shown here in the dark black line, really underperforming a lot of our peer states to the south. You look at North Carolina's, triple the amount of permitting activity. Georgia's not far behind. Tennessee, South Carolina, smaller states than us, uh, but they're outpacing us on construction as well. So this is, we kind of underbuilt our way into this tight inventory situation that we have in Virginia. In your region, you have seen an uptick. You have seen an uptick in permitting, particularly in single family and townhome. Uh, Mostly single family really in your region there in the aqua line. This really picked up kind of after COVID, kind of 21, 22, 20 into 23, and then multifamily as well has picked up, but certainly not, if I were to take this chart back to like 2000 and, right before that housing crash, haven't quite gotten back to those levels. Neither has the state of Virginia at large. So kind of mimicking statewide trends, but it has been picking up in recent years. So we conducted a analysis on housing shortage in Virginia, and we did this for all the statewide as well as every metro region in Virginia, including Richmond. And so the way we calculated it is we estimated what the potential pent-up demand is out there in the market. Um, and we came to about 5,400 potential, you know, unrealized households. These are, people who are kind of doubling up, roommates who would otherwise want to live separately. Think about your adult children living in with their parents well into their 30s because they can't afford a home. Think about your unrelated families living in the same unit, your seniors that want to downsize but can't find a unit, your long-term renters that want to crack into the for-sale market but are unable to. These are the folks that are baked into these calculations using microdata from the census. And, we took a look at market rate housing specifically. So we did not take a look at subsidized or below market rate housing at all. That is a completely separate category, and there's certainly a lot of demand there as well. But just looking at the market rate, 80% to 120 AMI, about 5,400 units in the region in 2025. Short. So, you guys, in terms of the real estate market there, residential, we're not talking land, we're talking buildings for sale. Inventory has been increasing, even though it's still tight. We're looking at about 9% growth so far in 2025 compared to last year. So we're looking January through May, year to date. This is up there with the smaller regions, right behind Roanoke, but well above the supply that we're seeing come online in like Charlottesville. Newer Valley's relatively flat. So you guys are seeing more sellers out there. Now, the inventory, though, as measured in months of supply, continues to be relatively tight. We would consider it still a seller's market in the Lynchburg region based on this metric. So we're about 3 months of supply, but it has been increasing. As you can see, last year we were at 2.9 at this time. So this is a comparison around the state. Not as tight as some of the areas in the kind of the urban crescent, Northern Virginia, Richmond, Hampton roads, but certainly tighter than many other places in the state. Home sales have been flat and sluggish this year so far. This has been due to the interest rates that we talked about, not really moving very much. As well as the limited supply, although we're seeing some improvement, but also overall economic sort of uncertainty. Consumer sentiment has been waning in a lot of surveys that are sent out. So a lot of people are just sort of waiting and holding to see what's going to happen, but 4% fewer transactions so far out there in the market. this year. Even without as many sales, typically when you see sales falling, you would see prices also cooling or potentially falling. We have not seen that take place yet. We're still seeing price growth. And that really speaks to that supply shortage because it's really, when you think about it, it's a, supply demand imbalance that's occurring not just in Lynchburg, but in a lot of regions around the state. 4% growth, median sales price year to date about 300 grand. So halfway point. Half the homes are higher than 300, half are lower. But again, this is 4% growth is it's not, crazy growth. 2, 3 years ago we had double digits at this point, but it is certainly higher than sort of an average annual, which is typically in the 2% to 3% range. This is important because that is typically the average wage increase. So you always want to have wages rising at a similar pace of the housing and of goods and services out there in the economy. When you have that, wages and the housing prices at a mismatch, you're going to start to see affordability issues pop up. So speaking of that, we did another study looking at just one segment of the market. We're talking about the 25 to 44-year-old households here. We focused on these because this is where a lot of major housing decisions are made when you look at the data. These are basically all your first-time buyers, a lot of your move-up buyers in there. A lot of family formations are happening during this cohort. And so the first column shows the income that's needed to afford sort of a typical median priced home based on current market rates, based on, local taxes, et cetera. And then we took a look at the data to see what these folks are making, what the median household income is. You can see the last column there is the delta. So in the Lynchburg region, the 25 to 44-year-olds, a lot of them are making about 20 grand less than they need to afford the median home. And that's not to say they cannot find a home that they could afford because they could, it's the median, but it just means that there's an increased competition for a smaller pool of homes. And so I think this really speaks to a growing affordability issue that's popping up in your region. Not as bad and not as severe, certainly, as some other regions on this table, but it's something to keep an eye on. So to wrap it up here, and then happy to take some questions. Not a shocker for you guys in the room. Your region's growing. Your population growth has been robust. We've seen thousands of additional residents move to your region since 2020. Job growth has also been strong for much of the past several years. We talked about the federal cuts, really is a pending headwind for the state's economy. Indirect potential to your region, not a direct impact on job losses, really, based on the composition of your job market. There is a growing mismatch, as we're seeing in the data, with the wage levels that are out there, the growing job sectors, and the housing that's available out on the market. New residential construction has picked up, but really it's been a sort of an underbuilding, slow churn since the Great Recession. And then we are estimating a shortage of housing in your region, and then pent-up demand is what's causing this. It's been building up for quite some time, and this is putting upward pressure on the home prices, which we're seeing continue to rise even with the market slowing down. So that is a briefing of what we talked about at the summit, and I'd be happy to take any questions that you guys have. Thank you.
Any questions for Ryan? Okay. Let's see, Trent Warner, is he here?
Yeah, I invited I invited Trent Warner, who was a participant at the housing summit that we had on June 25th. Some of y'all were in the room that are in the room tonight. Were also at the housing summit, so I thought it would be interesting or useful just for folks to maybe share the perspective that they learned, the things that they might have learned at the housing summit. Ryan Price was a speaker that we had just tremendously positive feedback on, and so I asked Ryan if he could give a brief version of the presentation that he provided at the housing summit. But also, Trent Warner provided his contact information after the summit. And so I asked him if he wouldn't mind just sharing his perspective, just as a participant in the room, about what he thought the summit added in terms of value for our region. So thanks very much for coming, Trent. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Not many faces in the room here, and I'll be brief, but
what happened with that was Greg Lester and I left the office that morning to come to the housing summit.
Will begin at your location around 5:42
I fully
p.m.
expected, and on our way in the door, I told him, I said, man, this is one of those summits where they're gonna talk about ordinances and AMI, shared rental properties, government housing, that type of thing. I hope this doesn't waste our day. And it was 6 hours of riveting stuff that like you just guys saw right there. And I said in the survey that followed that is I would love for all the planning commissions that are out there to be able to see these seminars, to be able to see these presentations. We just went through, pardon my friends, one hell of a rezone. It's 750 units in the city. With all the news that's about that rezoning, what was not discussed was how we actually did win. And Kurt actually was one of them that came to our site and we put things together. And at that meeting at the summit was exactly the research that we had done to discuss about housing. And Kent and the planning department in the city has been so good about wanting housing and making it affordable because it really is a supply issue when it comes down to it. So we've done some innovative research about what's the future market. And for us, we realized where we were, where this land was, the condos were the best things were. And having that research and what we were listening to, it just spoke exactly. I mean, I was motivated. It was so good to actually listen to that. So in my survey, I sent that. That's how we sort of got invited to listen. But just some of the same things that we talked about. And it was done professionally. And I was in the crowd, so I was not part of the presentations at all. But the discussions by the people that are up there talking about rezoning headaches and red tape and regulation spoke to my heart because that is what slows us down. And I mean, I'm going to give credit today, Bedford County today, and I'm not going just because we're right here, but they listened to what we had going on a site that we had, that we were being slowed down because of red tape. And could we go ahead and do our utilities underground? We have a bulk rating plan. If I would have asked that in many other places in the state, and I've been engineering for 30 years across the state, many places would have told us no, but they listened to what we had to say. And by saying yes, they literally saved us 6 weeks of construction or delay in construction during the summer when we can build. So listening to the overall theme of learning to say yes, especially with people that know what they're doing, and we know what we're doing, but having that history and that background, I just love the summit. And I would ask that you do that as many times as you can and have your planning commissions come in and listen to it and have your other council members and board supervisors come in and listen to it because it spoke to what the actual problem is, the supply. Thank you. Thank you for letting me consider.
Thanks for coming.
All right, thank you. And I would like to say a few words myself personally, attendee of it. It was very, very informative, and I'm looking forward to the next time they have it. I hope I can go to it. This was my first time attending it, but the takeaway points I got from it was just as Trent over here said that local governments have to be ready for development, and they have to be able to work with the contractors and all, because the last thing a contractor wants to come is have a locality say, well, we don't know what to do when you figure it out. And that's probably will be the biggest turnoff for you, and probably maybe get in a truck and go somewhere else. So, of course, we've had growth in this area, Bedford County, City of Lynchburg. We're starting to see Appomattox grow, and now it's coming into Campbell County and even in Alta Vista. And we have a big project that's getting ready to start in Alta Vista. We bought a farm, 117 acres right in the middle of town. And hopefully we can put out some RFPs this fall and get some contractors looking at it. But we're trying to do our homework now and get everything ready so that when the tough questions get asked, what do you want to do? We hope we have the answers for it. But again, how do we create housing that's affordable? Well, two things I learned: you can get a nonprofit contractor and get a profit contractor. Whichever way you want to do it is, whatever works best for you. So again, thank you to Alec and all the Fredo and everybody else that put in the hard work to get this housing summit done, and nothing but good, I think, will come out of it, and I look forward to the next one. So that's my little 2-minute spiel. Does anybody else have anything they would like to add to it? Okay.
And I'd be, and I'll head out, but I'd be happy if anybody asks, talk about the things that we run into, fees that we run into, that make things so much more costlier, bonding requirements that we run into and unable to reduce bonds. Those things we can, Amherst County Service Authority changing their meter program that made it much more affordable to be able to do multifamily housing. There's some really smart things that you do in your jurisdiction that would change things and make it so much more cost effective that would change the price of the house. I'd be happy to help that. And if you guys want to reach through ballot, I'd be happy to talk to you.
Okay. All right. Well, anybody that needs any help on planning, Brent, I don't know, do you have your information here that you could leave with us?
Good. Jeff Rado, he's got my stuff.
Okay, so if anybody would want, we'll get the information to contact Trent, and any questions you'd like to ask the contractor, we'll call it Stump the Contractor. So,
If you, I did have one request, or I mean, I wasn't able to attend. Are there any of the presentations or materials that you can maybe distribute to people like me so that I can redistribute as need be to the folks who, like what Trent said, there might be other folks' eyes that need to see this in positions of influence that may not be able to attend, that this might be educational for them. Because we just can't keep this information to ourselves, then, you know, it may not reach the audience that we need to reach. We have the Housing Summit webpage on our site has all of the slideshows that were presented. We didn't record anything for video wise, but all the slideshows. So Ryan's full slideshow, that's about the less than half the slides he had. His full slideshow, and other folks, Emily Hamilton did percentages, Jonathan Knopf did our housing study percentages. So all the slideshows are at the website, cvpdc.org, housing-summit. Okay, perfect.
I'm sorry, I actually downloaded all of those. I haven't printed them all. That in there that was staggering to me that I had to go back and find the presentation downloaded. But the first time home buyer today is 39 years old. 20 years ago, that was 31 years old. And 20 years before that, it was 21 years old. We're going in the wrong direction. And I thought I had to go back and find it. I did find it now. Like, what I heard was correct. Yeah.
And I would also just like to take a moment to recognize Jafredo and Patty, who are here with us. They did just an extraordinary job getting the summit going. We are, you know, not event planners, but Jafredo and Patty did a tremendous job putting on an event that we were just absolutely tickled with. We had almost 150 people in the room, which we were really pleased by. There was really positive response from folks that are in the housing industry, real estate development industries. So we commend them for their work. So thanks y'all for coming.
So if there's no further question, I'd like to thank Ryan for his presentation to us, and very informative. At this time, we'd like to move on and ask for approval of the minutes from our May 15, 2025 meeting. Had a chance to look over the minutes and everything looks good. Can I have a motion to approve the minutes?
I do have a question. And I can't remember, but it says that I left at 5:45. And then it says that I made the motion to close the meeting. So I was just, did I call in or what? I'm good. I must have left it telepathically. I'm just curious.
Okay, we'll make the correction on that. Do we know who?
No, I don't, unless somebody remembers that.
All right.
Hey, you can leave me there. It don't matter.
I'll move from the second position to the first position if it makes any sense.
Okay, we'll review it and we'll approve the minutes as amended in, if that's what we want to do. Okay, do I have a motion to approve the minutes as will be amended? Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, minutes are approved. We'll turn it over to Alec now for Cvpdc virtual meeting and participation policy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This item that we have for your consideration, my understanding of the guidance from council on public meeting laws is that we are to update our virtual meeting and virtual participation policies every year. So we tackled these last July, And with, since we have the rotation of officers in July, it seemed like a good time to re-up the public meeting participation policies as well. You will see, if you reviewed the documents, that we have a very short policy on fully virtual meetings. We haven't had that in years. It would be typically only an emergency situation where we'd have maybe a weather situation. But we do have folks almost every month meeting participate virtually. We're glad to have that. We're glad to provide that option. Considering we have folks that are travel at 20, 30 miles and meet, we think it's important to do that. And so it's the fact that we do have to re-up it is a good opportunity for commissioners just to review what the policy is. There's no real limit on how many meetings you can zoom into as long as you have a reason bona fide by law, such as family medical and the like. There's also a stipulation for personal, really any reason that you can, so that requires notification, and there's a limit by on the total number of meetings you can bow out of each year with no explanation. So there are no changes to the policies. It's just a refresher and a re-up of those meeting policies.
Okay. So we'll need to vote on that.
Yes.
All right. Do I have a motion to for the Cvpdc virtual meeting and participation policy update?
So moved.
Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Moving on in with our next guest, Amanda Ponce from the Central Virginia Comprehensive Transportation Safety Action Plan. She's a consultant with EPR, is a principal planner with 20 years of multimodal transportation planning experience in project implementation. Her experience includes regional scenario planning, local government comprehensive planning, multimodal transportation planning, and public involvement. Amanda is also an adjunct facility member at University of Virginia's Urban and Environmental Planning Program, and further teaches a bicycle and pedestrian planning and design course through the Virginia LTAP Safety Circuit Rider Program. So I would like to turn it over now to Amanda, and the floor is yours, and we look forward to hearing what you have for us.
You're on mute, Amanda.
Mute myself. Just want to make sure. Can you see my screen? The PowerPoint?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Excellent. Also just want to mention, joined here today with Alan Simpson from our office, as well as Mark Herman from Kimley Horn, who's been a key part of our team in developing this plan. And we are so excited to be here today to share with you the draft Central Virginia Safety Action Plan. So we've got just maybe 15 minutes or so for presentation. So we're going to go kind of quickly through the importance of regional transportation safety, give a little bit of background about the overview of the SS4A program and the safety action plan requirements. We'll give some high-level overview of the draft document, and then just discuss some next steps and timelines. The Central Virginia region is among the top three. Oh, I should have gone back. I'm sorry. I want to just also mention here on this slide, every year 36 people die and 280 people are injured just in the region alone. And these are deaths and injuries that are preventable. And the safety action plan is intended to chart a path forward together to identify what we can do to prevent them in the future. And in fact, the Central Virginia region is among the top three MPOs in the state for fatal crashes per 100 million vehicle miles traveled. And there's a lot of opportunity for reducing the number of deaths and serious injuries through using a safe system approach. And this really is a paradigm shift to improve safety culture and increase collaboration across all safety stakeholders, and refocus transportation system design and operation on anticipating human mistakes and lessening the impact forces to reduce the severity of crashes and save lives. The Safe Streets and Roads for All program is a federal grant program through the U.S. Department of Transportation that was designed to help local communities prevent death and serious injury for all road users. And in 2023, the US DOT awarded the Central Virginia Planning District a planning grant to create a safety action plan, which in the Safe Streets and Roads for All kind of program, it's really the basic building block to significantly improve roadway safety, which employs that safe system approach that I discussed. And a safety action plan is required in order to receive some additional SS4A implementation funding, which includes both construction and program funding. And to the best of our knowledge, there is still one more year left of this program, so opportunities to leverage some additional funding. So this project kicked off about a year ago with our project working group. We had our first project working group meeting in August 2024, and we've done a lot since then. We've had 4 meetings with the project working group. We've had some locality-specific stakeholder interviews, public outreach via survey and pop-up events, as well as a safety summit. We conducted field visits in each of the localities to better understand some of the conditions along the roadways that were highlighted as key safety issues. And again, just grateful for your time today to share some highlights from this draft plan. I mentioned earlier there are some certain requirements that need to be met in order to be considered an eligible safety action plan and ultimately be eligible for that federal funding. A safety action plan uses data analysis and community engagement to characterize roadway safety problems and strengthen a community's approach through projects and strategies that most address the significant safety risks. And so things like having a leadership commitment and goal setting, which is still something that as part of the adoption process we will be asking for a resolution of support for. Like I said, we had the planning structure, our project working group that really served as the oversight for the plan development and will be utilized moving forward for plan implementation, some safety analysis and engagement, like I mentioned. The plan also includes different policy and process changes, as well as strategy and project selections, and then finally, kind of methods that measure progress over time. And the draft plan, incorporates each of these elements, and the outline of the plan really kind of follows the same format. So using a variety of data sets, we evaluated a number of different trends, both at the regional and local level, just to better understand the needs and identify strategies to reduce fatal and serious injury crashes. Shown here, we looked at regional trends, locality trends, fatalities by jurisdiction. What did that look like over time? What types of fatalities are there by user type? Different emphasis areas. So this is a way that the state looks at crash data. And so we looked at it through that lens, as well as developed a high injury network map. Looked at how those transportation fatalities and serious injuries corresponded to locations that have, vulnerable populations. We looked at Virginia DOT's PSI locations, as well as their pedestrian and bicycle safety action plan. So unfortunately, we don't have time today to get into all of the details of each of those, but that is in the draft plan that you'll be able to look at. We also relied on community engagement to supplement the crash data. We know, not all crash data is available, right? And so the plan, starts to summarize our engagement efforts, which I talked about, in the planning process. And some of the top issues that were identified were speeding, intersection visibility, bicycle and pedestrian safety, and concerns about driver behavior and school traffic violations. So using all of this data and input, we developed goals for the plan, and these include reducing speeding and improving intersection safety, improving roadway infrastructure to promote safety for all road users, strengthening enforcement initiatives to address dangerous driving, expanding safety education and community engagement to foster a culture of safety, and then supporting emergency response systems that save lives. And so again, part of this planning effort really is bringing together all of the different safety professionals, such as engineering, enforcement, and emergency response to create a comprehensive approach to safety. It's not just the engineering projects. So during the safety summit and subsequent working group meetings, we worked together to brainstorm and prioritize near-term actions that could be advanced as part of this effort. And these actions include both policies and programs, such as initiating speed studies on roadways with high conflicts and activity levels, upgrading shoulders by widening, adding edge line, or installing guardrails, advocating for increased fines, engaging youth and elderly drivers, and then establishing a trained volunteer response network for traffic incidents. I'm going to let Mark talk about the countermeasures and prioritization.
Thanks, Amanda. Yeah, so to start, we looked at two different types of safety countermeasures from an engineering and infrastructure standpoint. The first is systemic safety countermeasures, which tend to be lower cost safety countermeasures that can be implemented over a larger portion of roadways, with the goal really being to, if we can get these countermeasures out to as many roadways as possible, then those effects can be magnified and hit a lot of drivers. So for these improvements, we broke them out into 4 different categories. So we had improvements geared towards intersections, roadway departure crashes, speeding related crashes, and then improvements that target vulnerable road users, which are our pedestrians and bicyclists. One second there. These improvements, we didn't call out specific locations where they could be implemented, but we called out the types of roadways or the types of intersections that could be candidate locations for these types of improvements. And improvements that are lower cost and can be deployed in a systemic style tend to be more likely to be funded by a lot of funding programs. We'll talk about that in just a second. We also identified some site-specific countermeasures. So we kind of did this 2 ways. And I'm using our maps here for town of Appomattox as an example, but you'll see 2 maps for each jurisdiction that is part of the PDC. So the first is we looked at our safety data to identify where there were high needs and a lot of crashes happening that resulted in fatalities or serious injuries. So we looked at the data, we conducted some site visits to be able to observe field conditions, and we identified some new site-specific countermeasures that could be installed at those safety need locations. We also looked back at efforts that had been completed in recent years, whether that be from other studies or conducted by any of the jurisdictions themselves, but we wanted to make sure that we incorporated any of those countermeasures that had been identified in previous efforts if they have yet to be funded and constructed. Because if we include them in our plan and prioritize them, it opens those up to potentially be funded by the SS4A program. So we wanted to recognize the good work that had been done in prior years, add some new ideas, and then have a prioritization matrix that compares all of the above. So I wanted to call out just some examples of some of these site-specific countermeasures. So for this, I just have one listed for each of the jurisdictions, and there's a wide range. So Amherst County, we had an example geared towards vulnerable users, which was to install a mid-block pedestrian crossing on Amherst Highway near the town center apartments. But then couple that with an improvement to replace the 2-way left turn lane with a physical median. That improvement does have some benefit to pedestrians, but is also geared towards all motorists. For Appomattox County, an example, and this is typically a systemic type improvement, but here we wanted to call out a specific location that could benefit, is Route 727 to install shoulder edgeline markings and rumble strips to help prevent people from running off the roadway. Bedford County, an example of consolidating gas station entrances at Blackwater Road, where we noticed a lot of crashes where there were sight distance issues. Campbell County, similarly, a lot of angle crashes at Richmond Highway and Stonewall Road, and that could really benefit from converting that signal to have protected left turn phasing. And then one example in the city of Lynchburg to add high visibility crosswalks, high visibility signal backplates at Memorial Ave and Park Ave. So I mean, these are just some examples. Full details are in the plan, but wanted to call out the different types of improvements that you may see. And then we had a prioritization criteria. So again, the point of this was to help prioritize either new projects that we've identified or projects from prior efforts that had been identified but have yet to be funded or constructed. And we had 4 different categories that we considered here. So we looked at safety, which is our highest weighted category. And this looked at 2 prongs. So one being, how bad is the safety problem today? The more crashes there are in the past 5 years, the more points that project got. We also looked at how effective our recommendation could be at reducing those crashes. Any improvements that are really proven countermeasures and have the potential to reduce crashes, more points. Our second category was implementation, where we considered both the cost and time frame. Time frame, we were assuming how long it would take to implement a project after funding had been received. For both of those, lower cost is better, and faster implementation is better. We had a category specific to vulnerable road users. This is where points were allocated to pedestrians in areas that were identified as high needs, or I shouldn't say just pedestrians, but to any of our vulnerable road users. And the point being there is that, pedestrians, bicyclists, people who roll or use transit, if they are in a crash, the likelihood of a severe injury or fatality occurring is much higher because they don't have the protection of a vehicle. So projects that are geared towards improving safety and access for vulnerable road users in areas where that could really be beneficial, that also then received points in our prioritization matrix. And then the last category being our demographics category, where we considered areas of persistent poverty, which is consistent with the direction that Federal Highway Administration is moving with the funding program. So when it comes to implementation and funding, one of the last chapters that we have in our plan is to help identify both state and federal funding mechanisms to help fund these projects. And when I say projects, it's really the infrastructure-based projects, but also some of those solutions, whether they're education or enforcement-based solutions that Amanda had called out to try to achieve the goals set out at the start of this plan. One thing I wanted to specifically call out is for the SS4A program, 2026 is the final round of money that will be available unless the SS4A program gets renewed. At this point, we don't know if that's going to happen. So one of the main takeaways here is that it's never too early to start talking about if you want to seek funding to implement any of these projects through the SS4A program in 2026. Any project where you seek funding, those do require a 20% match. And just for reference, and this may be a little bit different next year, but at least in terms of how the schedule worked for the 2025 round, is that the notice of funding was released at the end of March this year, and applications were due at the end of June. So you don't need to wait for that notice to be released to start talking about whether you would like to submit to try to fund one of these projects or programs, but more details about the specifics of what needs to be included will be made available around that time. And Amanda, with that, I think I'll turn it back over to you to talk about next steps.
Sure. Yeah. And I think also, just while we're here on this slide, highlighting that all of this planning is also very relevant to the Virginia context and the Virginia funding programs that we have with smart scale, highway safety, transportation alternatives, et cetera. So even if you choose not to pursue SS4A funding, this plan will also set you up for those under other funding sources. So in terms of next steps, as I understand it, Kelly's going to be kind of working to present the plan to the localities in the hopes of adopting it sometime after this meeting. I believe the tentative schedule is to have a public comment period from August 4th to September 5th. And we would invite you to review this document and provide comments as well, like anytime within that time frame. And then we will be coming back on September 18th to present this the plan to the TPO for adoption. So that's our next steps for this. And so with that, I turn it over to you all for any questions or comments that we can answer.
Anybody have any questions for Amanda? All righty. Well, thank you, Amanda. We appreciate this. And in a couple of months, we'll review it before we have our final consideration. So thank you for this update on the safety action plan.
Sounds great. Our pleasure.
All right, we'll turn it back over to Alex, and we'll be doing a water supply planning application to BDEM.
Just a quick follow-up on the transportation.
Okay.
We will get that slideshow and the draft of the plan out to y'all. They certainly provided to you by email. If you'd like us to print something, print that too.
Okay.
And then I'm certain Kelly might have a couple more details to touch on.
Yeah, I do want to point out that, again, we had September because there was some initial thought with application with the Safe Streets and Roads for All and how things would progress. But we have, I was literally on with USDOT today, and our project had, our grant is extended to December of this year. So, I know with localities in summer, and so if there is a need for us to give, the localities a little bit more time for me to come present at a time that makes sense for y'all's schedule. We were originally to end this in September, at the end of September for our contract and our final for USDOT. That has been extended to December of this year. So, if it need be, the information is the same. So time to look at that, and then time to come to your localities. If it ends up, we don't come back to you guys for adoption in September, but we do that in November. We still have some, a little bit more of a grace time than we originally had. So just to recognize.
And just the significance of that adoption is that make you eligible as a locality to pursue that federal funding stream next spring should you so choose. So they provided a few examples of state revenue streams for transportation projects. This is a federal one. And if y'all were tracking results of Smart Scale this last round, fewer projects were funded by Smart Scale. It's in part because they were bigger, but fewer projects were funded by Smart Scale this round. So having another option may be of value. It's worth knowing too that federal funds, about a third of the streets in about a third of the travel in Virginia is on local roads. And of the federal dollars, we all pay gas tax, of the federal dollars that go to the Commonwealth, only 1/6 of that money is suballocated to local governments. So that taking that opportunity to tap into those direct federal dollars is helping to really kind of is just another good opportunity rather than be reliant and think about something like revenue sharing where you're asking the state for their money back and then also making that 50% match from your general fund is we have an interesting funding scenario in Virginia. So having this federal options, we don't know if it'll be renewed or not past 26, but I think it's a good option to pursue for this game.
I will add, I apologize, one thing and really tag on to what Amanda pointed out and Mark had on that slide, which is the state of Virginia has honestly been a leader nationally in going with the countermeasures and using the safety action plan. So the state within its state vulnerability and its safety and its PSAP program really utilizes the same foundation of the federal Safe Streets and Roads program. So to the extent that this safety action plan really does sort of provide the localities that arrow in your quiver in consideration for Smart Scale and HSIP and the other state programs, they very much use, again, the same sort of element of rating. And that was actually sort of reiterated today, actually in an OIB meeting with Stephen Reed from the state. So again, this plan really is arming you with that opportunity for federal dollars, but really supporting those state applications as well.
Okay. All right. Moving on then to the next subject.
Water supply planning. So mostly informational meeting today, I guess, not a huge number of big action items, but this item is not requiring any action, but I wanted to give you all an update on where we are with regional water supply plans. This is something that arose from regulations that were adopted by the state, and then you all as local governments were notified this on October 19th of 2024, that there was a requirement for every town, city, and county to participate in a water supply plan. The state further prescribed geographic boundaries on which you might consider working together. They did not align those with planning district commission boundaries, and so that has added some additional wrinkles. At that time, we did talk about this at the meeting in November, and at the time, there were a couple of counties did not want to pursue working as a region, who have the planning district commission take the lead at that time. There have been since been additional conversations, and several other localities do want the planning district commission to take a lead. However, a couple of the counties don't want to pay for it. Understandably so. This is an unfunded mandate, which makes it a sticky situation to resolve. That being said, Kelly has really done a tremendous lot of work and to try to position our entity to apply for some funding from the Virginia Department of Emergency Management. And if we can get some funding to make this plan a reality, I think that would be tremendously helpful. It's it's a winning cures all ills type of a move. So that being said, we submitted letters of intent to participate to every member local government. We have most of those back. VDEM does want them all. The application is due Friday. If not everybody can get that by Friday, we just ask y'all to work diligently towards completing that. But we think that we have a decent chance. We did clear a pre-application hurdle in March, I think it was, and now we're at the point of a full application. So it was a positive step that we got our pre-application approved. And so if a full application approved, it would be $450,000 to execute a plan, which is in line with the estimate, the cost estimate that two different of our on-call consultants provided us. So we would be, I think, in a good position if we could achieve this, have a successful grant application. Our next step at our next meeting is that DEQ, this is DEQ's requirement, we're applying for VDEM money. But DEQ has like $8,000 available, so we will pursue that also. But importantly, DEQ would require the Planning District Commission to adopt a resolution saying that it would take the lead and coordinate with the member local governments. So obviously that decision is yet to be made. We did include this in our work program. And if the money was to be arrived, we were to get a positive indication by then. I don't know if we'll know for sure by then, but if we were to get a positive indication in the future, that it certainly be more palatable for everybody to vote for a resolution to the plan. So that's what we're looking for as a future step. We're taking this slowly one step at a time, and we appreciate everyone's support, everyone who submitted the form letters so far. There is a match component to it. We're not sure exactly what that'll be. So when we asked for the letters, we were asking for roughly 1% of the project total from each locality. If it comes in lower than that, great. We'll save y'all a few bucks on that front too. So that's where we are. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have on the topic of water supply planning.
I appreciate Kelly's effort. That 450,000 came out of nowhere on all of our communities, and so to be able to possibly get a grant, that would be great. And as you said, unfunded mandate, it's one of those things we all struggle with, but you have to do it. So I'm going to keep my fingers crossed.
All right. Moving on. Alex, I think it's still you.
Still in the staff section. The next item is the financial report. Now it's provided to you in your packets. It does, of course, take you through the end of June, so you can see how we finished off for the most part. A couple of payables and receivables outstanding. But do you have any thoughts or things stand out to you, Sandy, you'd like to talk about?
The only thing is, I just want to reiterate, it's not the final numbers. We still have some billing we're working on that's not included in this report. And also some expenses that come in after this report. So this will be the final. Once we have the audit report, that will get your final numbers. So that should hopefully we start up next month for the audit. Hopefully we'll have it sooner than by January this year. Anybody have any questions? I don't have anything else.
Any questions?
Next up is my report. I have two quick items for you. One, you all were subject to a presentation from Central Virginia Workforce Development Board staff at the last meeting. They had asked that we post a match for a grant application to train certified nursing assistants to become licensed practicing nurses. That grant application was not successful. We found out that there was a 3-step approval process. It cleared the technical steps, it cleared the higher level staff, but when it got up to the director level of the Department of Labor at the state, it was not approved. All of the projects that were approved were in the urban present. So all of those small workforce development boards were pretty surprised and obviously not too satisfied with that result. So that's where that went. There were 2 different pots of money that was available at the same time. We pursued one of them, and both pots of money, several $100,000, all stayed in urban present. Workforce Board will continue to work on a solution for that need and report back on a later date. So that's all I have on that. Any questions about that grant? I should add too that the $50,000 was posted as match will just simply go back into reserves, so that will stay on our books. Any questions or concerns about that? The last thing we have, the Virginia Association of Planning District Commissions, of which Mayor Tuggle is the current president, will be meeting for its annual meeting here in this room and in Lynchburg on August 7th and 8th. Hate to steal Mayor Tuggle's thunder. Would you like to tell us a little bit more about that? What you have planned for us?
Well, it's a board. They come from all over the state, of course. All the planning districts come in. But the main thing I want to tell this board was, I know a lot of you know Gary Christie. I'm presenting him with the President's Award. I found out through Alex that he doesn't have any restrictions right now. So he even said he'd like to attend the dinner we have on Thursday night. I don't know where it's going to be yet. Alec will let everybody in the PDCs know, but I think those of you that know Gary and stuff like that, it would be great for some, to show up if any of you are available, to come to that. So, when they were going through the awards this year and they got the President's Awards, I said, okay, I want Gary. They looked at me and I said, hey, Gary got me on this path that got me to the president. So I want Gary. And so they went back, well, we got to check. I said, no, you don't need to check. And so they said, oh, you can do it. I said, I was going to do it anyway. So, so we're going to recognize Gary. So I'd appreciate it, no pressure, but if any of you are available, come have dinner with us and then you can meet some other people because there's 21 planning districts.
August 7th.
That'll be
here in town.
yeah, it's 21 planning districts all over the state of Virginia. So you can get a good feel of what everybody else is doing too. So that's about all I've got. We'll come in Thursday afternoon. We'll have 2 speakers, and then dinner. Then Friday morning, we have a speaker, our board of directors, and then our annual membership meeting. So that's about it. For the town and city people here, can I go ahead and speak for VML just to drop some? It's a while. It's about 10 months off, but they have a president's, when they have their spring or early summer meeting, they go to the president's location. I'm going to be the president of VML come October 12th or 13th. So we're having it at Sweetbriar. It's going to be the board of directors meeting and, it's going to be a fun time, but at night, if any of y'all want to come up from the towns or the cities, just let me know and we'll make sure we got you a place at the table. We're batting around ideas, but I'm thinking we may end up having a wine tasting at Sweetbriar. And then we're gonna go to the bonfire. If you've never been there in the town, it's a small restaurant that is barbecue and bourbon. So that's where we're gonna have the fun after we give them a tour of our little town. And so, you guys, any of you guys that want to come on order me a meal, come on. And, just enjoy yourself. So I've invited you to 2 meals, but you're gonna have to pay for VML. So, okay, thank y'all. That's all I had. You had something more, Alex?
I would just say that if there are planning district commissioners that would like to attend that dinner on the 7th, you let me know. We'll figure it out. We'll figure out how to pay for it too. It's normally just treat for the other PDCs, but this is our area. We ought to figure out how to come together. It'd be wonderful if we could have a night showing for Gary tonight. So
It's our area. It's my show. I can invite who I want to go.
Right. Okay. Is that it?
sit on the organization reports. Yes, sir.
Okay. All right then. Well, we're at that time of the year again where we want to select our PDC officers for 25 to 26. And I want to thank everybody for giving me the opportunity to serve as chairman. It's been a fast year. I can't believe how fast it's gone by, but I've enjoyed the experience. I've learned a lot, met a lot of nice folks along the way, and had some good support and counsel and suggestions. And who knows, one of these days it might come back around again. We'll see. But this new slate of officers, I'm just tell you who we got, and then we'll just vote on all of them if that's okay. We'll just vote on the whole slate. Chairman will be Dwayne Tuggle, Town of Amherst. Vice Chairman will be Richard Connor, Town of Appomattox. He does it all, folks. He does it all. Treasurer Sarah McGuffin, Town of Amherst. So that's our 3 officer slate for 25, 26 for the Cvpdc committee next year, board next year. So can I have a motion to motion?
You all over
that. Second.
Second, sir.
All in favor of approving these 3 for the slate of officers for next year, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. So congratulations to the new slate of officers for 25, 26. And you've been there before. I know you do a great job. We look forward to having you here next year. Is there any other business to come before the chair or anything the commissioners here would like to bring forward? Hearing none.
I would just like to say I sincerely appreciate your time and effort as chair. It's been wonderful to work last year, and it's sad to see you turn over the gavel. But I worked with Mayor Tuggle on my first full year. Spec Director, I will welcome that opportunity.
Well, the only regret I had of being on here with Alec was he usually met at the same place to go over this meeting. I never got to take him to the best Philly cheesesteak sub place in the area that one of the preachers picked. But anyway, maybe I'll get a chance in the future to take him there and we'll have a best Philly cheesesteak in the area. But anyway, other than that, I need a motion for adjournment.
I'll make that motion.
Second. All in favor, say aye. Okay, all opposed. Y'all have a great day.
You're voluntold, huh?
Yeah. Add to the list.
Right.
I guess.
What's driving?